Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So on today's video I'm going to be making this terrarium here, and I'm going to take you through the whole process start to finish. So this is a native terrarium, so everything in here I've been and collected, and we're just using a cheap clip top jar. So we've got various different plants in here, a few different mosses, some isopods, woodlice, and there's a few millipedes in here as well. So stay tuned, I'll get back to you in a second and we'll make a start. Okay, so I'm collecting my gravel from outside. You can also use aquarium gravel, pea shingle, anything really. But I like to get mine from outside so that it doesn't cost anything. If you do buy it, make sure it's not been treated with any chemicals or anything, and avoid the stuff that's been dyed, like the pink aquarium gravel you can get, stuff like that. So what I'm aiming for is about pea-sized little stones. So I'll fill up this tub. It might take me a while, but I'm in no rush, so I'll get this done. Okay, so now we're going to wash our stones. So I'm just going to fill up this jug of water, put them in there, and give that a mix up, and all the stuff should float to the top. I'll just tip that off. We don't want any organic material in there really. A little bit shouldn't be a problem, but just do this a few times. Okay, so next thing we're looking for is moss. Just look in your grass, anywhere that's damp on your driveway, you'll find moss almost anywhere. I'm not sure what varieties, what species of moss these are, but I'll just collect a few little clumps of it. Okay, so still collecting moss. So I've just seen there's some growing on here, so I'm just going to scrape some of it off if I can. It doesn't matter the species. Moss all like damp conditions, so any moss is fine for your terrarium. But try and find a few different types if you can. And I'm also on the lookout for anything else living that I think might look nice in there. So I've just come across this log with all this fungus on it. So I'm going to try and get a bit of this off of here with a bit of bark, and we'll add that. Okay. Again, I'm not sure the species, but if it's growing outside naturally, then it will most likely be fine in your terrarium. Also, we're looking for any plants which might look nice in there. You can use any moss, any fungusy sort of stuff, anything that you see which is growing in the winter and likes the damp areas. So these little things here, I'm not sure what they are, but I know they're a weed and they keep reappearing all over the place. So it tells me they're most likely be fine in the terrarium. And I happen to know they have nice little flowers on them as well sometimes, if I don't pull them out from where they are. So we'll take a couple of that. There's more than one plant here, so we can separate these and they can go in. And I've just come across another little patch of what looks like a different species of moss, so I'm going to take some of that. So I'm going to take a clump from the middle. So if anyone can ID any of these plants that I'm getting, I know they're all native to the UK because they're all growing outside. So all these mosses will be ideal. I'm going to cover it back over where I pulled the bit from. Moss does grow quite slowly, so don't destroy any areas of moss that you come across. And it is an important ecosystem for lots of different bugs. So there's another bit there. Okay, so now I want to look out for anything sort of accent items, landscaping sort of sticks or bits of bark or anything that I think might look nice. Okay, so I've just come across this really cool looking stick. Got some woodlice on it already. So we'll take that. And I'm going to get a few of these acorn shells, acorn caps. A few of them in there. Anything else I think might look nice. A few little twigs. We can break them up and put them in. And for my main substrate layer, I'm just going to use some ordinary garden soil. So I'm just going to dig down a bit underneath all these rotten leaves and stuff and collect some of this. There'll be all sorts living in here. And what I'm also going to do is get some of this bark in there. Just break off bits and put it in there. This will help improve drainage. And as it breaks down, it will feed the plants and bugs. Okay, I also found this log here, and the wood's quite rotten, so I've just been collecting some of that. And I'm going to mix that in with my substrate to improve the drainage and feed all the microorganisms. Now what I want to do is get some woodlice or isopods into my terrarium. So I'm going to look under this log, and I'm going to try and get some in this container. There's one. So I'll just collect a few. Get some big ones in there because they're the adults, and some little ones as well if you come across them. So I'll carry on, I'll look around a few different places and see if I can find any more. Okay, so I've got a fair few woodlice in here, and these things here, I believe in my last video I was calling them centipedes, but after close inspection I believe they're a type of millipede. So these will be the clean-up crew for our terrarium. They will eat all the rotten matter and just keep everything clean and stop it all going mouldy in there. So we'll add all these guys into the mix. Okay, so now comes the fun part. So we've got all our materials. We've got our various mosses and plants and fungi to go in there. We've got our substrate, our soil layer with the bark mixed in. We've got a few sticks and acorn caps and bits and bobs. We've got our bugs, our clean-up crew, our isopods and millipedes. And we've got our gravel layer, our false bottom. And I've also got a bit of net curtain here. You can use all sorts of different screening as long as the water can get through but the substrate can't. And I've also got a kebab skewer and a wooden spoon, which might be useful for poking things into place. And I've got some activated charcoal. You can just use lumpwood charcoal, or you can skip this altogether. It helps filter the water. Okay, so this is the jar that I'm going to be using. So this is just a clip top food storage jar that I picked up. I think this was in the pound shop. So this was about £3. You can use any old jar, a pickle jar or a large food jar. They're ideal, as long as it's got a sealable lid. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add our gravel. So this is our drainage layer, our false bottom. So we'll add all these in here. We're aiming for about an inch or so. An inch deep layer for our false bottom drainage layer. And then I'm just going to use my hand to flatten it out and fill in all the gaps and that. So that should be good. So next we're going to move on to our, this is just a filter layer. This is just to stop the soil washing through into the bottom layer. So this is a bit of old net curtain that I'm going to put in here. And just to manoeuvre it into position. So next is the charcoal layer. I'm using activated charcoal. You can use any sort of charcoal, as long as it's not the briquettes which have been treated with stuff that helps it light fire. So lumpwood charcoal is ideal. So we want this layer about as thick as the bottom layer. So about an inch or so for each layer. So the aim is that this layer is about 3/4 the thickness of your soil layer. So next thing we've got to do is add the soil layer, the main substrate layer. This is where everything's going to be living and eating. So all these bits of bark and soil we've got here, we're going to add in here. And you want a layer at least as thick as the bottom drainage layer. So we'll add all that in. And I'm just using a wooden spoon to tamper it down as I go. We don't want it compacted. So next comes the decoration. So we'll start off with this stick. Try and get this in a nice position into the jar. So this is just kind of doing it as you go along. There's no wrong or right way to do this. Just whatever you think looks good. So I think that looks pretty good in there. So that's like a main feature for our terrarium. So now we'll start adding some of the plants and mosses. So with these, just make sure you get the roots down into the soil. It's useful to use a chopstick or a wooden spoon, or if you've got a long pair of tweezers, you can push it down with them. Next we'll add all the mosses into various places. Just tamper them down into the substrate. Doesn't matter too much which way around these go, they don't really have roots. But try and get them the way that you pulled them off. So we're just trying to fill in all the gaps. The aim is to not be able to see any of the soil. So we'll go with another plant here at the front right hand side. So again, if anyone can ID any of these plants that I've put in here, just leave a comment below, that would be really helpful, thank you. So now we'll just rearrange things and make sure everything's where you want it. Make sure you've got no leaves pinned down anywhere or anything out of place. I did add the fungus bark that we took off. You can see that there at the front. I forgot to record that bit. So I'll just manoeuvre it around until I think it looks good. Okay, so you can already see a woodlouse in there. So I'm just filling in all the gaps with other bits of moss and little bits of grass and stuff in there. And now we're going to put our acorn caps in and other little decorative bits that we've picked up. So it's just a case of putting them wherever you think looks nice. So I've gone for a couple at the front here, one at the back. And now it's the fun part, adding our insects. So we've got the isopods and the millipedes in here. So we'll just sprinkle them on. They won't be hurt by falling a short distance. They'll just crawl around and hide, make themselves at home in there. So here we are. We're almost done now. All the insects are roaming around their new world. They will help clean the surface of the glass and stop the mould and stuff. And now, last thing we need to do is give this a good water. So the idea is the water is going to run down in through the charcoal, get filtered, and then recycle for condensate and fall back down again. So now I'm just going to clean off the edges of the glass, get rid of any dirt or anything that's on there. Just because we're not going to open this again for a while, and it'll be annoying if there's any dirt on there. So I'm just using a bit of tissue and a pair of tweezers. Okay, so now it's time to close the lid. So we'll keep an eye on it. If we get too much condensation build up, we'll air it out. And now I'm just going to polish the outside of it, just to get rid of any fingerprints and dirt. Just using a damp piece of tissue. Okay, so there we have it. Our completed terrarium. So this is a 100% closed ecosystem in a jar. So the water will filter down through the soil. It will get filtered and cleaned by the charcoal layer. It will gather in the bottom, evaporate, and condensate on the top of the jar. Fall back down and the cycle will start again. This will water the plants. All the breaking down matter will feed the plants and the bugs. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed today's video of making our terrarium. And I will see you on the next one. Let me know what you think below.